Hi, this is Stephanie Lesperance from Grant Community High School, a high school of about 1,900 students in northern Illinois. I am a Spanish teacher and I predominantly teach Spanish 1 and Spanish 2. As I was thinking about this class and reflecting on my readings and formative assessment and student data, I really wanted to think about how can we change the course of Spanish 1 students throughout their time at Grant and what can we do to make it better? So that was really the inspiration behind what I'm about to show you. So the goal of this presentation is to present to my colleagues. There are 6 Spanish teachers on the team, all of which teach a section at least of Spanish 1 and are all pretty invested in the program. We take students from Spanish 1 to Spanish 4 AP and then Spanish 5 within 4 years, depending on where they start. And we turn non-native speakers into students who get 4s and 5s on the AP test. It's a pretty impressive feat for us. Have a pretty low income school. So, parent involvement is there sometimes, and they're not there other times. But we're able to take kids and really just turn them into language learners and Spanish speakers, which we're very proud of. So, but it all starts in Spanish 1 for most students. And so, our first unit is called Lecciones Preliminares, which means like beginning lessons. It kind of sets a foundation for grammatical structures and basic things that we use on a daily basis, like time and weather and dates. In order to be Spanish speakers, we learn those things first. So, thinking about our team, we are always reflecting in our PLT meetings, and so professional learning teams. And so, our department can really utilize formative assessment to maximize learning in Spanish 1, especially in that first unit. We always find our students come into Spanish 1 very overwhelmed. They're not sure how they're going to perform until the day of the test. And this is something that, with the use of Schoology, technology, and some old school tools, that we can really change. Many students do really well in the first unit, but others fall behind, and often that gap can just feel so large that it's really hard for them to catch up. And we utilize formative assessment, or we can, to better prepare our students so that they start off strong while learning a language, feeling more confident, and hopefully performing better and learning more throughout the school year. So, from this course, I've learned that it is important to set a strong foundation for formative assessment to happen accurately in the classroom. So, we're going to just take a look at a couple foundational skills that all of our teachers in our department will need to work on and consider as they move forward with more formative assessment in class. So, part of setting a strong foundation is keeping it brain based. And so, really, what that means is, do we care about what grade students get in the class? No, not really. We hope that they all pass and get A's and B's. That would be an ideal classroom. But really, what I care about isn't whether or not they're compliant in the school world and can play the game of school, but did they learn? Are they showing growth? Did they actually learn something versus did they come to school, be compliant, and do their work? We also need to model summative assessments. So we don't like surprise teacher evaluations. When we get evaluated at our school, we have some informal evaluations and formal evaluations. And informal evaluations always tend to carry the most fear for teachers because someone's just popping in your room, right? So we don't like to be surprised when we're evaluated. And students also don't like to be surprised. They should be assessed in the same way that they practice. We want to make sure that as we're moving towards summative assessments, we're doing formative assessments along the way to help students out. And so we can model each summative assessment through a formative assessment. And this is where we can really maximize technology in our classrooms to make those things happen over and over again. And we'll talk about some of those more. So, also, classroom management is key. With formative assessment, will lead to a lot of differentiation as teachers look at data and start to understand that students are at different levels within the same class. We have up to 30 students in our classroom, and it happens every time that there's a student who is struggling or a student who is overconfident and knows a lot. And so we really need to shore up our classroom management skills. That's priority so that we can train students to work independently, self-direct, and we have instructional coaches in our building that can help with this in certain areas if you're struggling. Another foundation for studying a good platform for formative assessment would be getting to know your students. We should get to know our students ASAP. However, it is so hard to have 30 students times 5 classrooms. Plus, we have a resource room that we need to get to know. Students can learn about us very easily because we have a platform and there's one speaking to 30 at a time, but it's hard to learn about 30 students at a time. So, I'll show you later in a minute a flip grade assignment that I came up with that we can do. I did try it in some of my classes this year and it was awesome. So, what you're going to do is students can do this assignment anytime. They will submit it online through a platform called Flipgrid, and then you can learn so much about who they are very quickly. But before I show you that, just knowing that your students opens an opportunity for teachers to make meaningful connections. The more they're cared for, the more they care. And we know this. The more we feel valued in any situation, the more invested we become in that as just regular adults. So our students, it's even stronger. So, taking a look at this Know Your Kiddos activity. So, this is what I posted on Flipgrid. If you have not checked out Flipgrid, I can show you how to do that as my team. But if you are just watching this presentation, you can also check it out. It's free. And so what you do is you create little classes, but I gave this assignment to my students. They had to introduce themselves. They did not need to speak in Spanish. It was more for me to get to know them as people versus learning or assessing their language skills. So I asked them to answer at least one question about themselves. I asked who do they admire most and why? What are they most looking forward to this school year? What is something that they could brag about, but they usually don't? And if they had to wear a t shirt every day with one word on it for the rest of the school year, what would be on it and why? And the insight that I got from watching these as my students turn them in over, give them a span of a week to do it was amazing. So I got to see not only like their answers and a glimpse into their world, but looking at their surroundings, like where did they film it? In their kitchen, what did it look like? Were they in their living room? Who was with them? Some students pulled in family members or pets, and I really just learned a ton. So I would recommend this to any teacher and pretty much any grade level. It's very easy. It's like making a selfie video. Students are very comfortable with it. And also, so social emotional learning school skills are super important when it comes to setting up a classroom with a strong foundation, excuse me, for formative assessment. Today's student really needs to learn to manage their time. They don't do it naturally. They are consumers of technology. They play video games too long. They get distracted on their phone. Distraction is a huge part of their generation. And so we need to teach students to manage their time. If you're going to expect students to work at different levels and on different tasks, that is a skill that they need to learn. It isn't inherent. And so we need to teach them to self advocate and self manage when it comes to their learning. Do I understand this? Can I look at the data? Can I tell myself, yes, I get it, or no, I need more practice? And how do I go about doing those things? And finally, we need to teach students how to act in a academic setting between their language that they use amongst peers and teachers, their behavior, their communication skills. They need more work than ever on interpersonal skills and all these soft skills like eye contact, what's appropriate, what's not. These are skills that we need to now teach in schools that have been lost over the last like 20 years in education and home lives. And so we need to now set the foundation with these skills and make sure that they're ready. If they don't have these, having a classroom that can use formative assessment to differentiate, choose your own adventure, and meet students where they're at becomes very difficult. So, throughout the course, I was looking at some strategies on how we can incorporate formative assessment into class. So, let's take a look at some of those. So, we have formal formative assessment tools that we can use. Some of them we already have created as a department. We have a pre made workbook that students are assigned, a textbook that they're assigned. We have so many worksheets. And then we also have whiteboards in our desks. We have new flexible seating with drawers that can hold a whiteboard, a marker, and eraser. And so we can utilize all these things on a regular basis to take the pulse of where students are. Um, we can also beef this up with technology through our learning management system, Schoology. We can create practice quizzes, and we have a lot of them, and others will need to be created. And then we can also take our worksheets and convert them to a program called Formative. Formative, if you are not familiar with it, is an awesome program that allows you to take a worksheet, make it digital, and then allows students to get instant feedback, allows you to see where students are. It marks things red or green depending on where they're at. And there's a lot of assessments tools there that you can use. We also have informal formative assessments. So instead of something with paper or answers or the computer, we can always take the pulse of our class informally. We can ask students for thumbs up, thumbs down. We can ask them to turn